Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And it's finally over. We are done summoning on the Overlord collab banners. There's nothing else coming, no other units to bring me such massive disappointment. This is it. But first, we do have to go over just a few things about SHALLTEAR. The first of which being that the joint battle here is where we will get the free gear for SHALLTEAR, and also where you can get the free multi on SHALLTEAR's banner. So how this works is that if you beat any stage 40 times, there are missions that will give you a free 10-pull multi on SHALLTEAR's banner. It does not matter what difficulty you clear. Could be 40 attempts on normal, could be 20, could be 20. Any way you want to do it 40 times. All right, and that's how you get your free multi. It's in the mission rewards right here under limited, and you scroll a little bit down and clear joint battle 20, 24, all the way up to 40, and these are the part 3 tickets. The second thing to know is that in order to get the free gear for SHALLTEAR, it's going to take a bit. Because this event is around for 7 days, 6 days by the time you're watching this video, and it's by having everybody in the world clear the extreme difficulty 250,000 times, which isn't going to take long to do. We just have to wait the 7 days for this event to actually go away and for us to get the free gear. So if you already have gear for, like, she's a Dark Claw, if you have one of those, just put it on SHALLTEAR, it'll be just fine. But we have to clear the extreme version 250,000 times, which you may or may not be able to do. If you want to do extreme 40 times, then that'll definitely help towards the clear count, and it'll help get you that free multi. They do not have to be done at the same time, but that's how you get the free stuff for SHALLTEAR. Now, going through her kit, it's pretty sad. So one, she is dark, she is magic, she's on Stern of Spirit, Wholehearted Devotion, just like Albedo, and she's on Warrior's Mind, which do not put her on Warrior's Mind. I beg of you, do not do it. She brings nothing to that team. Her ult is an AoE dark magic, so she is the AoE DPS for this meta, where Ainz is the single target DPS, SHALLTEAR is the AoE. She also lowers magic resistance by 15%, meaning that anybody who attacks after SHALLTEAR ults will do more damage because of this debuff being put on the enemy. Her first skill gives Stern of Spirit or Wholehearted Devotion characters an 80% ult buff. Which sounds good on paper, because yes, the Stern of Spirit team is the Overlord team, so you're giving them 80%. But this skill, these two categories, these two teams, are the same as Albedo, and as we saw during the Albedo videos, these teams are terrible if you're not running Overlord. They're straight up bad, and the fact that you're locking a very basic ult damage buff to these two not great teams does not bode well. The second part of that skill is lowers all targets' defense by 80%, which looks very good. But in practice, it is not very good, and we will showcase that here today. Her second skill is the sad despair skill, 5% passive attack, 5% ult resistance down, and the third part, instead of giving green damage or something that I thought would be more useful for the team, she rushes her own ult by 30%, which, if she is the AoE DPS, then it does make sense. But we're already getting increased ult gauge on greens from Albedo, if you happen to run her. So this seems like a bit of overkill. I guess it would help get her EX ult faster. It may come in handy here and there. Her Valor trait seals magic skills, which is actually one of the best skills for Valor Cup. Unfortunately, I don't see her being used too much in Valor, because she's expensive and these buffs are just okay. And she's magic, which means she doesn't fall under the Protector Shion like skills, where she gets guaranteed crit and guaranteed synergy because if they're physical, because she's not. And her actual trait gives her a 5% attack buff if you send 6 greens the previous turn, which goes up to 8% if you have dupes in her. Again, also, you will get a free dupe of SHALLTEAR if you pull her from the character introduction quest. So we have 3 different free things that we're getting for SHALLTEAR. We're getting a free dupe of her from this quest right here, this new one, the Bloody Valkyrie. We're getting a free multi for her, and we're getting free gear. So that's nice, even though she's a terrible unit. But why is she terrible? Let's find out. Okay, we are on turn 8. We have 16 stacks of despair, which will go up after we use a few skills this turn. Ainz is currently sitting at 7 stacks of Rimuru, which will soon be 8. So we're looking fairly good right now. So let's go ahead and buff, and despair here. And then we do have the alt for SHALLTEAR held in the back, so we can go ahead and use it first because it does lower the magic resistance for other characters who attack after her, so that works fairly well. Albedo will come in, we will stun strike, and we will, we have enough for one more stack of despair, and then we have the SHALLTEAR buff. So we're going to be at 18 stacks of despair. Pretty good. That's 90% alt resistance down, almost capped out. Albedo comes out. SHALLTEAR comes in, and we will use her 80% alt buff and 80% defense down, and then we'll reset and buff Ainz one last time, and then we'll take a look at everything that he's got right now. So he's got 80% alt damage from SHALLTEAR on him directly. He has 8 stacks of Rimuru, 9% crit damage from the Rimuru trait, guaranteed crit from himself, 70% magic attack from himself, 100% weakness strike from Shizu, 40% stun strike from Albedo, and then Leon has 50% alt resistance down from Shizu, 80% defense down from SHALLTEAR, and then 18 stacks, which equals 90% additional alt resistance down from all the despair. So we are currently rocking 140% alt resistance down. It's pretty good. So let's send SHALLTEAR first, lower his magic resistance, and then we will nuke with Ainz. Let's go ahead and turn the animations on just to see how much this does. And Ainz should do decent damage here. But the reason that SHALLTEAR is not great is because, and both her and Albedo, is because we can take both of them out and do a lot more damage without them. So she does 536. She's not full buff. That's fine. Ainz, though, is going to come in, and he's going to drop a couple million, which is good, but I want more. I want more big bone daddy damage than just a couple million. I want many millions. How much does he do? 4.6 million. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. 4.6 million. Okay, well, let's now come back, and let's look at a team that only has an 80% alt buff, right? SHALLTEAR is giving the 80 up and the 80 down with the defense. Let's take away that defense buff and see how much it's actually impacting your total damage output, just to get an idea of what she's bringing versus what a different unit would bring who doesn't quite have the same skill. Okay, so we are back on turn 8. This time, instead of SHALLTEAR, we brought Guy, because Guy also has an 80% alt buff. His physical allies crit is a non-factor here, so what we are doing is we are removing that 80% defense down debuff alongside the other additional stacks of despair that we're able to get, alongside that 15% magic resistance down that SHALLTEAR was doing as an alt effect. So with those three things combined, what are we actually gaining or losing by not having SHALLTEAR here? Well, this is a science test, so we're going to find out, aren't we? So let's bring Guy in. We will use his alt buff. We are only at, 11 stacks of despair, which is going to go up because we can use Albedo and Ainz again. So we're going to be at 13 stacks, so definitely less than what we had going into the last clip. But let's go ahead and apply all of this, the despair, and then we can just use it because we're going to have enough points anyways. It doesn't really matter. So we're going to be at 13 stacks. So we're 5 stacks down, 25% alt resistance down. Ainz is already at 7 right here. So if we were going to make it totally even across the board, we're only going to use 1 stack of Rimuru because we only had 8 stacks last time. We are now at 8 stacks here, but just know that we could use another stack to just increase our damage even more. So 5 missing stacks of despair, 80% defense down that we're missing, and then the 15% magic resistance down. And what does Ainz do now? he does 3.8. So there is a significant difference if everything lines up and you are able to use SHALTEAR's ult first, because that 15% really does matter. So SHALTEAR cannot say that she doesn't bring nothing to the table for the Overlord team, but if I were to take Albedo and SHALTEAR out, and I were to put Dark Milim and Shizuka in here, we'd be doing like 7 million damage, which I have shown off in multiple videos. I guess I can nuke it again, just to give you the actual true example in the same video. But I don't know if that's really the case here. I'm trying to make SHALTEAR look good, right? Alright, we are back with yet another team comp. This time we've taken out SHALTEAR and Albedo. Shizuka is gone too. Guy is not here. This time we've brought in Dark Shinsha. So we have Dark Milim, well, she's still here, for the ult damage and the attack buff. We have Dark Shinsha now, who's giving an additional 70% dark attack on top of what Rimuru has been stacking, and 10% dark resistance down. And she's had a few stacks of her crit resistance down, so 5% every single time we use this skill. So Ainz still has the 70% ult damage, and now he has 8 stacks, which we technically do have access to another one, but we're going to keep this as, you know, as baseline as possible, so we won't use that final stack. And then he has 25% attack for Milim, guaranteed crit, magic attack, weakness strike, dark attack 70%, which does stack on top of this dark attack right here. And then Leon himself has 35% crit resistance down from Shinsha, and then the 50 resistance down from Shizu, 10% dark down from Shinsha, and then 35% ult down from the stacks of despair. So let's see how much damage we do now with this team, now that we've substituted 2 primary new summonable units away, and we put in 2 units that came out for the first anniversary. So let's see how much a normal orb does, and then how much his ult does now. 204. Oh, we pierced. Well, that's unfortunate. Alright, we're back. We're not going to pierce here. We're just going to send it. We have the same amount of everything. 8 stacks on Ainz, the 7 stacks of Despair, the 35% crit resistance down. Everything is the same as that run. It's just, we're not going to pierce, we're not going to synergy, and we do 4.7 million damage. Remember that Guy, with, you know, his buff, 80%, did 3.8 around there. So this is still, I believe, more damage than what the Overlord team did. But let's verify that just really quick. Alright, so looking back, this is the full Overlord team, 18 stacks. We did 4.6. 4.6. We did 100,000 more using Shinsha and Milim than we did using the totally optimized, quote-unquote, Overlord team with, you know, having a lot of stacks of despair, sending the SHALTEAR ult first to get that extra magic resistance down debuff that's right here. So, by using units that are 2 years old versus the units that came out yesterday and 2 weeks ago, we did more damage. Granted, Milim is skill fused. I will give you that. That is a caveat. However, it does not detract from the fact that she is over a year old at this point, and runs better on this team because not only is she giving an ult buff to everybody, not only is she giving an attack buff to Ainz, she is also an orb changer, which this team can use. You know, sometimes Nabe can't do it all. And that's not great. Okay, last part of the video, because honestly, like, the Wholehearted Devotion, Stern of Spirit is just, it's not a super great team, but we are able to run most of the Wielder of Magic meta. Shinsha is on Wholehearted Devotion, Hinata is on Stern of Spirit, and then we have SHALTEAR, obviously, and then we're going to bring free-to-play Ranga, and then the second anniversary Shizu that came with this meta, and it's orange-focused, and SHALTEAR doesn't have any orb restrictions, right? She's not locked onto green orbs for protection gauge or alt gauge. It's just she gives herself alt gauge on her despair skill, which you do or do not have to use on this team. But it means that we are free to put her on a team that can at least accommodate her 80-point buff. And so this team, in theory, can do it. It just takes some setup. So let's test it out. Alright, I mean, we gotta get what we can take on these stages that don't have set starting hands, and I will take 5 orbs for somebody, so we're just gonna bring Shinsha in now for Shizu, and we'll call it good. We'll send all this on Soe, because he does bind us, and that is almost enough to get us the ult, but not quite, which is actually what we were looking for. Let's also bring Hinata in, because we're gonna get extra protection gauge from her support slot, which is Water Shion, and that'll get us a Milim. So this works out fairly well right here, as long as we can get some Shinsha orbs, which we did. Alright, perfect. That works quite well. So this team, like, we can put SHALTEAR on it, certainly. Do we need to put SHALTEAR on it, though, is, I think, the better question. And I think the answer to that is probably not. Like, this is a burst team. There's not a lot of room on a burst team for an 80-point skill. You could smash it in and make it work, and you could do wonky things like what we're going to do here to ensure that it can happen. But the reality is you should be using low-cost skills. 55, 40s, 25s. That's what this team wants to see. Not an 80-point skill, which honestly could be achieved with a 55-point skill. Because half of the skill is kind of pointless. So it's tiresome. Alright, that gets the EX ult. Perfect. That gets us max points. So next turn we can use the element buff. We'll have the Pierce buff still active next turn. So we're going to hide the Pierce and the element buff from Hinata on Shinsha. And we're going to send her away. And then we're going to build up to 100 points plus a Milim. And that gets us 140 on one turn, which gives us just enough to use the 80-point buff plus the Shizu buff plus Shinsha's own buff. That is a temporary thing. So now we just need to get another Milim, which we can get here. So you're going to get the element buff, boom, and you're going to go. And we'll see you in a bit. Perfect. And we'll bring in Shizu. And we can actually use Ranga's orb change here, which works out very, very well. Let's go ahead and reset the cost of things as well, just for funsies. And then this should either get us very close to, or just straight up get us what we need. Alright, it gets us what we need, plus an EX ult for Milim, or for, not Milim, but for Hinata. So the next turn, we will be ready to nuke. And you know what, we might do good damage here, I don't actually know. Okay, he's dead, so we're not going to get binded by anything here. That's a lot of damage. Okay, perfect. So, we're going to use the ult resistance down, 25%. Good. And now, you're going to come in for Shizu, because we don't really need you. We don't really need Ranga either, but we'll take you out. Boom. And then we will also now use the buff right here. So this is 41%. We would technically get more if we sent more oranges beforehand, but we're just going to use it now, because we have to. So, yep, boom. And then we will bring in SHALTEAR for Ranga now. We'll use Milim, so she's going to give us an extra 40 points. And now, we're going to use the big time buff, and that leaves us with just 10 left over. But we still have everything important active, because now Shinsha has the 50% EX ult damage she gets from herself, the 80% from SHALTEAR, the 8% from the charm that we're running. Okay, cool. And then she herself has 30% pierce power, guaranteed pierce, 50% water attack, and then 41% attack, while Benimaru has counterpart doesn't matter, 25% ult resistance down, and 80% defense down. Now, we are not getting that extra 60% damage buff that Milim gives against fire enemies, but you gotta take what you can get, so this would do a lot more damage if we were fighting the correct type of enemy. But we did manage to fit the SHALTEAR buff on a team where it may actually matter. So let's see how much it does. Let's make sure the animation is on for Shinsha, because I don't see this very often. And she's gonna do... she's not going to do 1,000,000 because we don't have type advantage. 500k? Somewhere around there? Magical Sweet Honey? And we do 380 2. Man, that's certainly not 500,000 damage. God, really? How much does she give herself for the... Is that 50% on her EX ult? I mean, that's a lot of buffs for that kind of team, right? It is 50%. So that was 130% ult damage, 50% water attack, defense down, ult resistance down, pierce power, pierce rate, attack buff. I mean, you could probably bring Water Shuna or something like that, and you could get roughly around the same. You would do like 350 or something like that, not 380. Oh, man, that's... How much defense does Benimaru have? He has 7,000 defense. That's not a lot. It's not a lot in today's meta. That was a lot when Tempered Edge first came out. 80% defense down on 7k defense does not actually matter that much, which is why SHALTEAR's buff isn't really that great. Okay, well, I mean, I did what I needed to do. I put SHALTEAR on the Overlord team, and she does numbers, and we found out that you can do more numbers without her, and then we put her on this team, and it's kind of unnecessary to do such a thing. So, there's nothing really super great I can say about SHALTEAR, because she's just so unnecessary. Like, if we go into my box, right? This is sorted by Stern of Spirit and Wholehearted Devotion, the two teams that both Albedo and SHALTEAR give their buff to. Look at this team. If you take away the Overlord units, because they're brand spanking new, you are left with Sokka and Rain, two characters who are horribly power crept out now. We have EX Hinata, the first EX nuker that we ever got, and she hasn't been used, I think, since she came out. Albus has been power crept, but she can still be okay. Second Anniversary Hinata is very good still. She's not that old. Mirren and Yom, they're free-to-play EX characters. They're good on a Vengeance team if you need them, but, I mean, they're nothing to write home about. The New Year's Blessing Shensha is a good unit, but for physical characters, and the Overlord characters are magic. In fact, most of these characters are magic. Shensha, we just saw what she could do. Raphael is defense focused, has no use for defense down on the enemy or ult damage up. Evil Rimuru from Warrior's Mind only buffs Earth and Space, and let me tell you something. SHALTEAR is not Earth or Space. Albedo is. It's cool, I guess. But he also swaps an alt way to a blue, and Albedo is buffing green orbs. So, synergy is not really there. Nabe is free. Old, shit. Congratulations. You've successfully given us a number of units that don't work well together, because they're old and terrible. They're focused on burst damage, they're focused on blue orb changing, or they're physical characters, or they don't even run well. It's like, what is SHALTEAR supposed to do here? Who is she buffing, if not the Overlord characters, if you don't have them? And that is one of the biggest problems with this collab. And I'm going to talk about that in a separate video. But this is the SHALTEAR showcase. We definitely showcased her. It wasn't great, because she doesn't really have a lot of options to run with. If you hate this video, I'm sorry, but I'm trying. Just... It's like, look at what we have to work with. Look at what we have. Look at the other options. Look at all the other options that the game has that just outputs more than her. From 2023. Or maybe even 2022. Or technically, yeah, 2022. It is what it is. We did the showcase. I can say it's done, and we can move on with our lives. So, let me know what you guys think of SHALTEAR. I know most people are upset, disappointed as such, and rightfully so. But if you have other opinions, let me know. But that's it for me. Take it easy, guys. And I'll see you all later.